Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Athens, Georgia-based musician and engineer Killick Hinds. He opened up about his collaboration with Italian drummer Francesca Remigi on their new 2022 CD, Empowered Kind. His music is Appalachian Trance Metal made on unusual stringed instruments with his primary sonic influences as animals, wind, water, fire, electrical hum, and silence. Together, these two bend the sonic possibilities. He gets into how they met, the project, and so much more. Enjoy.
Thanks for taking a minute out to talk about the project.
Absolutely.
So are you in Athens, Georgia?
I am.
Okay. Why does that ring some kind of bell for me for REM, or am I just off base?
REM started here, and then, of course, the B-52s started in the 70s here. Widespread Panic is one of the other big ones, and there's been, at least a dozen other acts who've broken out internationally from Athens.
Felt like I was on to something. I felt like I was on Jeopardy, and I had 1 minute, and I got the right answer. So cool. You come from a very history-rich music community, and this project sounds very interesting. And before we get into this project, I want to know, first and foremost, what is your role on this project, and kind of just to give me a little bit of an expose before I delve into it.
Sure. Well, I am a collaborator with Francesca Remigi, and so we kind of brought our artistic energies together in equal measure for this project. And then additionally, I did the mixing and the mastering of the album.
So before we get to this album, which is kind of a new dawn, a new horizon for a lot of artists because of COVID, I'm curious, how did you survive that 2-year period, and how did it subsequently change you now that we're coming out? You got a new album, new opportunities.
Yeah. Actually, I ask myself that question almost every day. I think we're all still putting the pieces back together in a way. But I think what sustained me in general through COVID was correspondence work with other musicians from around the world. So it was either audio or video, making new friends, new friends through the internet, some of whom, like Francesca, I've had the chance to work with in person at this point. And I think just keeping the artistic energy going when everything else was sort of falling apart. That plus hiking, getting back into bicycling, definitely kept me going.
I'm a cyclist myself, so I get it. To get out and feel the wind is always a good thing, for sure. So,
exactly. That's it, feeling the wind.
Yeah, right. Well, and I find just listening to music and being in that position really just makes it all a little bit more cerebral. So I enjoy it. So talk to me a little bit about how you two hooked up. How did this usable union happen?
So there was something called the Community Project, the Composers and Improvisers Community Project, and it was based out of Portugal, run by an Argentinian guitarist and composer named Javier Subatin. He basically wanted to do something to keep momentum going for artists during the pandemic. This was, I first encountered the Community Project, let's say maybe around June of 2020. And he eventually got more than 100 musicians to participate, maybe even closer to 200. So these were improvisers and composers from a variety of genres from all around the world. Some of the music was more on the contemporary classical side of things. Some was more on the jazz, and some on the sort of unclassifiable side. I contacted Javier and just said I would love to participate, and he agreed to my participation. And I ended up making about 10 or 11 videos for him, and then at least that number of audio duos with collaborative partners from all over, sort of selected at random. But I did put in, after hearing some of Francesca's music through the Community Project, I did put in a request that I work with Francesca and Javier agreed. So I was able to work on a piece that ended up on her album called The Human Web. The piece is called Trance, and Francesca sent a chart which had chord changes and a few melodic motifs, and I sort of constructed a piece out of that, and then she played drums, in accompaniment, and there was a sort of magic that transcended the distance between us, and also our different backgrounds. I'm nearly twice as old as she is, and she grew up in Italy, and I'm from the States. But there was something just really magical about the combination, and then on Francesca's suggestion, she said, she could come to Athens. This was at a point where things were easing up a little bit with COVID, and we got together in the studio called The Glow here in Athens in March, and we had 2 full days in the studio, and we used every minute of it, kind of plumbing the depths of every possible sonic approach we could take with stringed instruments and percussion, acoustic and electronic percussion. None of the music fits neatly into a genre, but there's certainly threads of our backgrounds and all the different styles that anybody would be familiar with. So I feel it's an engaging listen and a really special musical relationship that we've developed.
So how did all of this begin for you? How did you get involved with music, and how did it culminate? Obviously for our reasons here, we're a jazz show, but how did jazz and all of that become a voice of yours?
I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old, and at the time, most of my exposure to music was through pop music. All the music of the 70s and then into the early 80s. And I loved all of that. But then I discovered heavy metal, which kind of took a front seat for a while. And then the related, cousins of heavy metal like punk and hardcore. And then little by little, I started getting exposed to what I would now consider avant-garde jazz. I just chance encounters through broadcast television, of all places, and then proximity to New York City, since I grew up in New Jersey. I learned about Sun Ra. I think Sun Ra was one of the first, sort of unusual types of music to make a real impression on me. By the time I got to college, that's when I started to really explore more of the classic jazz from the 50s and 60s, and then even earlier. John Coltrane, in particular, was really pivotal for me. Hearing Giant Steps for the first time, I was probably about 19 years old. It was just revelatory. I listened over and over and over and over to the main tracks and the alternate tracks, and then that eventually led to a love of Alice Coltrane's music, and late period of John and Alice working together. And I ended up actually getting that quintet, the Rashid Ali, Jimmy Garrison, Pharoah Sanders, Alice, and John quintet tattooed on my leg.
The one thing that's very unique about the avant world, I've noticed, is that you almost get pigeonholed into a certain listener that listens to this. And I'm going to open this up a little bit. What if you open up the floodgates to more people that would pick up this particular album? What would you hope the listener would get from this? What do you ultimately hope they feel or get from this piece of art?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm deeply appreciative to anybody who takes the time with it, even a few fleeting moments. I hope that somebody would find that the energy and the sort of the good vibes and the excitement of working together translates, across time and space, through the medium of digital streaming or CD. I think for a deeper listen, I'm really interested in the way that textures and timbres and rhythms sort of interact. A listener will probably notice a lot of the music is not beat oriented, it's not strictly in metronomic time. or readily countable time signatures and those kind of traditional aspects of rhythmic classification. To me, it's more of a dialogue. It's a conversation between the percussion and the strings and the electronic adornment, and I feel like there's a propulsion and a through line and a sort of dynamicism, I should say, and that permeates the entire structure, whether we go from quiet moments to bombastic moments and everywhere in between. First and foremost, I'm a lover of music, and I enjoy hearing something unlike I've ever heard before, and that's always my goal, to not repeat myself when I make a recording, and Francesca definitely feels the same way.
If anybody wants to pick up Empowered Kind, learn more about you or Francesca, anything revolving this project or your respective worlds, where's the best place for people to go?
Right now, the Habitable Records Bandcamp has Empowered on pre-order, I believe. So there's one song available currently, and one song is available for free streaming. The full album and the free streaming of the full album will come on December 2nd, which happens to be my 50th birthday.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I just turned 50 on October 13th. So, yeah, congratulations.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, same to you, man. Well, cool. Well, before you go, thank you for opening up. Thanks for taking time out. I'm looking forward to profiling on the show. I wanted to make sure you knew that first and foremost. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Joe. Yeah.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in Italy, Athens, Georgia, Kansas City, Missouri, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that music and jazz. And thanks to Killick for his time, music, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on either iTunes or Spotify. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.